Inside Story Uganda.
Dominated by a lot of suspicion and splits. What more do you need to add to DP?
It's my duty to add what the members want. You have got to realize that ever since I took charge of this party, I have been very unfairly treated by the media, like yourselves.
Okay.
You talk about chaos. In NRM primaries, there are even dead bodies. Do you remember the primaries of Mwesigwa Rukutana, where a dead body dropped in Itungamo?
So it can only be comparable to that.
I think if you don't look at the context of the whole of Uganda, you'll find that actually DP Delegates Conference was quite tame. You see what's happening, what in Najana Nkumbi. Do you remember the chairman of FDC running for his life, climbing over a wall and rushing breathless on Entebbe Highway, pleading with a random driver of a car to get him out of the area? I've never had you roast them here. But when it happens to Mao and DP, you really put us in the hottest part.
Yeah, because you're the benchmark of true, transparent democracy.
Then why don't you first start by
praising?
And
you failed on that mark.
Why don't you first start by praising us?
You were hitherto.
No, it is not hitherto. I'm simply telling you, we are dealing with situation we did not create. If you have a candidate like our Bukoto Central MP, who I actually warned when we had the National Council in Soroti, I told him, excuse me, sir, you are not qualified to be president. The position of president is a very serious president, and you cannot compromise on constitutional requirements. It requires that you should have been an active member for 10 years. You should be a person who, you know, he was a civil servant. And just a few years before he went to run for parliament, he had to resign.
Yeah, but nevertheless, he was paying his annual subscription to the party. He had membership cards from way back.
Simon, the constitution says 10 years.
Yes.
And you should know that in Mbale, even Honorable Mbide wanted to be vice president. He was disqualified. He's not the only one. Now, when anyone makes it appear as if, you know, someone was deliberately targeted, DP is not going anywhere. Unless you are on some mission which nobody knows, you can wait. Why do you have to kill the party because you must be on the ballot? And then, when you come to the delegates conference and you start saying no Sebamala, no elections, what do you expect us to do? We are the leaders of the party. Hundreds and hundreds of delegates have traveled from all over Uganda. They want to have a delegates conference. They expect to choose their leaders. And it was important that order be restored. Actually, the incident you saw was quite mild. I was expecting worse, given the militancy of the mobs. They brought many.
Who brought the mobs?
The one who brought most of the mobs is our Bukoto Central Member of Parliament. Remember, he wrote on various social media pages that if he's not on the ballot paper, it will be bloody. And then he also boasted that he has the backing of powerful people. He said he will sit somewhere and just press buttons and no one will touch him. He even said, do you see the army anywhere here? In other words, he was very sure that, you know.
He was spoiled for a fight.
Yes. But I wasn't born yesterday, Simon. I know politics. The people I'm dealing with, I know them from A to Z. It was therefore important that the main purpose of the delegates conference takes place. Now, what OO talks about, that people carried away ballot boxes. The ballot boxes needed to be secured. And you will see that when the ballot boxes were moved, in the full glare of cameras, and there was no stopping, the other candidates for president were there as the counting continued. The videos are there. Some people were spreading rumors that the votes were brought to Kampala and counted from Kampala. It is not useful to try to demonize the process. We could have definitely had a more peaceful delegates conference, but I can tell you, those who were threatening violence are now playing the victim.
Yeah, but in the face of your victory, I expected you to be graceful and maybe congratulate your opponents. Instead, you came out and said, I was surrounded by enemies. That was a loaded statement.
That was the campaign.
And not conciliatory.
In my speech, before being sworn in, I was actually very conciliatory. But you will see my conciliatory nature in the next few months. And you have seen how tolerant I am. Do you think there are many leaders really who are as tolerant as I am? You tell me which party leader would sit the way I sat there and tolerate the kind of things that was going on. When I talked about being surrounded
by
enemies, I was speaking the truth. But I was also saying that in politics, you focus on those who are for you first. Then after you have won, then you reach out to those who are not for you. Any politician knows that. You cannot campaign to whom it may concern, because the time for campaigning is limited. So if I know that so-and-so is not for me, why do I waste time talking to them? I first of all consolidate those who understand me. And after I have won, then I reach out the way I've been doing.
There are worries that your win this time is further consolidating your marriage with the NRM. And what guarantee do you give the country that this is not another journey of DP into the NRM?
The most important thing is that this delegates conference and the election, particularly for the president, was also a referendum of the issues in the party. If the delegates, the vast majority, thought that this cooperation agreement is such a bad thing, there's no way they would have touched me with a 10-foot pole. So I hope that's a clear message. Those who don't like the way we are leading, it's really too bad. But I hope they understand that the extremism, which we really wanted to save the party from. We wanted to save the party from extremism. We wanted to save the party from politics of unnecessary hatred. We wanted to show that where Uganda is right now, we need bridge builders.
So it's augmenting your relationship with the NRM. You're still there.
We believe that all Ugandans should actually find common ground. You are talking as if in Uganda we only have NRM and DP. That's very unfair to Ugandans. Uganda has patriots in all the parties, and I think those patriots should come together so that we shape the future. That is what Norbert Mao stands for, and that's why I was saying my job is building bridges. Now, those who came to say no to cooperation agreement, they should have actually won. If that was the issue that was the most important. So they hyped it up.
So the agreement was your winning streak?
It was not my winning streak, but the majority of the citizens understand that where Uganda is, you cannot promote political untouchability. That if you have any working relationship with the NRM, then you are the devil incarnate. You cannot have that kind of politics. Uganda would have been a lot better if our leaders were talking. 1966 would not have happened.
Well, thank you.
If Dr. Botti had spoken to the Kabaka.
Thank you. George, Do you imagine the return of Mao is a blessing or doom for DP?
Now, when the roadmap started, our interest was that we could have a credible, transparent internal process, because that process would determine the after period of the election. How the election happened, there are those who feel they were unfairly treated
Including yourself.
within the process. Now that he has leadership, it might be difficult to bring them on board. As you say, this delegate conference was like a referendum on the direction of the party. The president's leadership in the last 5 years, one of the critical points has been the cooperation agreement with the NRM. In his speeches, those who have heard him, he says it started with a phone call with the president of the country. We are now talking about political parties, not kingdoms. Dialogue between political parties is a result of the involvement of the organs of the very parties. His resistance to me has been not involving the party organs of the Democratic Party. I say this because I happen to be a member, I have been a member of the NEC, and I know the processes that led to the cooperation agreement. When we were told that he had signed an agreement with the other people, it was in July, we met in December. We wanted to discuss this and so that we can have a position, but that very agreement didn't appear. We again met in Guru, it never appeared. We again met in Mbare, it never appeared. It only appeared this year when there was a discussion, but it was in March when we were having NDC in
So do you have a clue of what is in this agreement?
Yes, yeah. As of now, there is a clue, but it came after like 3 years. Now, party direction is shaped through party organs. But if party organs have not conclusively discussed party decisions, it becomes unclear how the party is moving.
George, there is also a school of thought that some of you
Yes.
who contested against Mao
Yes.
were just in the race to further legitimize his candidature.
That is a good question. Those who didn't contest, they left open spaces for people to go unopposed. There are some of our colleagues who contested because this was like a last resort of engaging. Our hope in Mbarara was to see whether there was, to see, and we looked forward to a transparent process. Because if the process was transparent, then whoever led would take the party forward.
Yeah, but was it foolhardy of you to imagine that there would be a transparent process under Mao, whom you've accused of working with the state?
The other option, in my opinion, was worse. And as he says, what I see going forward, I see a strengthened relationship, working relationship with NRM. My only worry, my only wish is that if you are a leader of a party, you need the party behind you. Because you are not expressing your views. The party president has been very eloquent about transition talks. But you see, you're not talking on your own. And his efforts, in my opinion, to bring on board the party has not been a success. Even when the cooperation agreement was brought to the National Delegates Conference in Mbarara, when it was brought by the Secretary General, then some then one person came and seconded. There wasn't any discussion. So the way it was endorsed and approved by NDC without any discussion from the National Delegates Conference also because if it being endorsed is one thing, but is it owned by the members? We met in Mbarara in Ruti. Ruti is the home of our former party leaders, former national chairman, Boniface Byanyima. At some point back, so many DP members left, but he stood ground. Had he not stood ground, I don't know whether we would have met in Mbarara. So, as discussions go around about engaging and not engaging, the late Mzee Boniface Byanyima has a lesson to teach us as members of Democratic Party.
Thank you. Where do you see the future of Uganda's oldest party with this thing called the cooperation agreement?
I did not follow in detail cooperation agreement. I haven't followed in detail the delegates conference, how it is convened, how it is run. Unless they are accusing Honorable Mao of manipulating the process. Because if you say that the cooperation agreement was brought 3 years later to your delegates conference in Mbarara, this recent one, it was moved, seconded, and discussion and adopted, matters closed. So if you were the majority, what prevented you from blocking it? If what you are describing is correct, is accurate, and Mao should have fewer members in the delegates conference, it should have been blocked. First of all, its presentation and adoption without debate. So in my view, I think in that case, therefore, maybe in your delegates conference, Honorable Mao has an overwhelming number, which is now reflected also by the margin of his win. 900 something votes?
Yeah, he got 969.
To 500 or what?
Lulume got 339.
300, yes. So, it's more like maybe they gave up the fight in the delegates when this item was moved. Maybe they saw the number.
Yeah, but there is also a contest on numbers that the tallies do not really add up.
I don't know the total number of the delegates.
Do you want to speak to this? In just a second.
No. He's saying that it should have been blocked. The meeting was led by the chairperson of the meeting, and he would determine who would speak, and he would also determine closing a subject.
Okay, I thought you wanted to talk about the numbers. Do the numbers add up?
The numbers
of the delegates.
Who voted? When the process is not clear, when what you saw of carrying ballot from one place to another,
for security,
then it brings in issues.
Okay, thank you.
No. I'm starting with at the time the cooperation agreement was presented as an agenda item.
Yes.
It was moved by someone and seconded, and according to you, it was quickly adopted without allowing debate. At that point, the ballot boxes were not yet there.
Yes.
What prevented the majority of you, or some of you, who were contesting the content or the direction of the party on the basis of that cooperation agreement? What prevented you from stalling debate on it and its passage and adoption at that point?
You get permission from the chairperson of a meeting. If he has not allowed you, you can't do nothing. Maybe if you are suggesting that members should have risen up and started fighting.
But see, this is very interesting because Honorable Mao is now in a catch-22 situation, I think. Because Honorable Mao has been in the group on the side of people who say 2 terms are adequate for a political leader. I'm curious to find out from him why, for a political party, those 2 terms shouldn't apply.
You want to pick it from him? Yes, Honorable Mao.
There's a difference between the term limits for a president of the country who manages the state and a leader of an organization that wants state power. You don't put term limits on a struggle. I'm a leader of a struggle, and I don't think you can put term limits on a struggle. You imagine if in the bushes of Luwero there were term limits.
No, the people went to the bush.
We are also in the bush.
The people went to the bush did not believe in term limits. That's why when they came here and we imposed on them, when it was convenient, they changed it. And for them,
so he preaches water.
Yes, yes.
We believe in term limits for president of the country.
For them, they even believe that you could be killed before you actually achieve the struggle. Now, Honorable Mao, where DP in particular copies some of its major tenets is Western European democracies, German, UK. In UK, when a leader of a political party loses an election, quite often, just losing one election, you get out, they bring a new team to lead the party. And that's also a struggle. And so is German, and so in many other European countries. So how come that particular etiquette, if I may call it?
So in essence, you're saying Mao is stuck with DP, not DP stuck with NRM.
Yes, you don't copy that one. Because in Europe, when you lose an election, you give way for a new person to hopefully take a new direction. The second aspect is, Honorable Mao had said here earlier, that the DP constitution, the DP management style, when he challenged him about changing the rules, he said it works for DP. I didn't understand him to mean it works for him in particular. He says it works for DP. But Honorable Mao has been on us. Why are you not changing the Electoral Commission?
Bringing electoral reforms in.
Why are you not bringing, yes. And we have been saying, no, as far as the NRM is concerned, as far as we are concerned, the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda and the laws that govern elections in Uganda, which are presided over mainly by an NRM-dominated parliament, works for us as a country, and in that respect, works for NRM as well. So why would we change? Again, I find Honorable Mao they are not coming clean, because what is really good for the goose should be good for the gander, as the adage goes. So, but you had asked me, where do I see DP going? Honorable Mao said in the coming days, coming weeks, coming months, he's going to reach out. I hope he does so. And I hope he does so with a major shift of mind and focus, because this is not the first time he's having an election like this and a fallout of this nature. If it has not worked since 2010, when he first won elections, the Sebagana, they went somewhere else, there was again friction. You remember even this DP block thing initially was started by Honorable Mao here. DP block, which eventually mutated to People Power and now NUP, was it actually started by him. If it did not work at that time for the group he has eloquently described here as surrounded by enemies, I don't see Honorable Mao convincing that group which has disagreed with him in Mbarara.
There was a time when DP was a force to reckon with. Do you still look at them as such?
When was, maybe if you leave Obote true, I don't think DP has been since that time.
Yeah, but even
I don't think
96, 2000, one election.
But in 96, as Honorable Mao himself,
DP was a formidable force.
Honorable Mao has described, he said, in 96, DP was not a force. If DP was a force, it would have given Dr. Semogre a big chunk of vote in the areas where DP was perceived to be dominant. And which were these areas? Buganda, Busoga, Bunyoro, and Toro. Because those are the areas by the last general election of 1980 December. Those are the areas that overwhelmingly voted for DP. Those were also the areas that were harassed by the UPC regime. But the fact that they, in 1996, 2001, they did not side with DP leaders who were standing for election means that DP lost its strength somewhere between 1980 and 1985 coup. And I think what led to DP losing was actually the cooperation of DP leaders led by Semogrere joining the military junta of the Tito Kelos. I think that's what the leaders, their supporters in these areas have described. Just said, you can't trust these people. Really, to be polite probably is to say, these people are hopeless.
Do you see a splinter group now emerging out of the new rift?
I am not in the mind of the people who are contesting his leadership. If they are faint-hearted, they may look for a convenient shade. But if they want to give him a headache, I think they would do, if I were in their shoes, they would do, from a tactical point of view, come back to work with him as they bid their time.
Honorable Mao, when you become DP president, it automatically qualifies you to be a presidential candidate for the national presidency. Do you still harbor these intentions?
That was the announcement I made after the delegates conference, that the delegates conference is the primary election of the presidential flag bearer of the Democratic Party. So I am DP's presidential candidate as I talk now.
Does that suggest that you're going
It doesn't suggest.
You're resigning from the ministry to run against the presidency?
I am telling you that when you are the president of DP, you are the presidential flag bearer.
But
So it is important.
Will Mao be on the ballot come 2026?
It is important for you to let the Democratic Party manage its affairs. You watch. You are a journalist.
No, but it's very interesting for us to know.
Yes, you watch.
No,
in politics.
Why would you love to be vague about this?
I'm not vague, but do you want me to I must have at least 1 or 2 cards facing down. Isn't that my right?
No, but Simon, I don't think that's even a very fair. But well, is your question? Honorable Mao has been a presidential candidate, rather a DP president, for the last 15 years. There was a general election where he was the president general of DP, but was never a presidential candidate.
Yeah, but
in the main election.
Yes, in 2021.
Yeah, he was not. So
the cards that are facing